we're here in Las Vegas at the Bellagio at the Townie 2015 meeting, Townie meeting 2015. And yesterday, your lecture, you crushed it. Everybody was posting pictures of it on Facebook and Dentaltown and more. And I'm your biggest fan. I think your audience is they love what you hear, and so my opening question to you is, Mark. First of all, thank you for doing this.
Howard, a pleasure to be here. Thank you.
And also thank you. Also, you're gonna fill in for a speaker who got sick and is in the hospital. My very good friend Mike Totola. So thank you so much for filling in for my good buddy Mike, the man Totola, and we hope Totola feels better. But so Mark, I want to ask you. My first question I want to ask you is, this is April 17th, 18th, and next month 5,000 American kids are going to graduate from dental school, and being close to dental students, because there's 2 dental schools in my yard. In all honesty, dude, they're scared. They're not sleeping well. They're scared shitless. So I want to ask you, my first question to you is, what year did you graduate?
I finished dental school December 1983.
So you're 83, I'm 87, so we've been doing this 30 years.
See, I consider myself like a Howard Ferrand, but with hair and without profanity. So that makes it different. I remember reading something you wrote back in maybe 1990 and thinking, who is this guy? And he's not going to impact dentistry. And it's amazing what you've done and the impact, Howard. You talk about young dentists. I have one of those young graduates coming to join me June 1st. And I know that they're scared. I know the debt is crushing. And I also know with proper guidance that we can point them in the right direction and they can help lead dentistry into the new generation, the new future that we have. The debt is a lot, but with paying good attention to management, leadership principles, and communication skills, we can help these kids get out of debt and thrive.
So what would you tell that kid laying there? And I also want to ask you this, Mark. When we were little and get out of school, if one of our classmates said, you know what, I want more experience. I wanted to go join the Army, Navy, Air Force, Marine for a couple of years. Right. They got a lot of CE. I'm going to do 100 more root canals and crowns and maybe do a GPR or whatever. And we'd always say, hey, right on, man, go Navy, go Army, good luck for you. And that was usually a good decision. Now if a kid says, well, I think I'm going to go work at corporate dentistry like Heartland Dental or Pacific Dental, a lot of people are like trying to throw them under a bus, like, well, that ain't right. I mean, what would you tell these 5,000 kids? Do you think they should get another year experience? Or
Howard, I respect how people choose to practice and how they choose to get experience. I was fortunate that I finished dental school a semester early. So I finished December 1983. I went over to Israel and worked as a dentist for 4 months on a kibbutz, a cooperative farming community. Grew a beard, grew my hair long. My last week there, I went and met my wife. It's a very profitable trip. I came back to Chapel Hill and did a 2-year hospital residency. So I bought basically a 10-year-old stalled practice July 1st, 1986. So I had 2.5 years of experience post-dental school. For these young men and women coming out, I would ask them to aim high. I respect, again, if they choose to join a corporate situation, I would ask that they look at the philosophy of the corporation. Is it based on volume or quality? And I would hope young dentists would set a continuing education goal. I set a goal for myself to do 100 hours a year. So I got my fellowship at the Academy of General Dentistry, my mastership at the Academy of General Dentistry. I went to Pankey Institute, had a huge impact on my career. I went through 6 levels of Pankey.
So did I so there. FAG, MAG,
tremendous. I've been to Spear, heard Pete Dawson, tremendous thought leaders in dentistry. I picked some really wonderful heroes. Erwin Becker from Pankey, Linda Miles, Dr. Kathy Jameson from Oklahoma has been a huge impact on me. So I recognize that everybody needs a coach, everybody needs a continuing education goal, and I think you need to constantly improve and also recognize that you're not going to get it all at one moment, that it's a process, it is a journey. And with small improvements, with little things, you can have a huge impact. A young doc coming out $200,000 in debt, it sounds crushing. Most young docs work 200 days a year. It's $1,000 a day. It's a flick of the wrist for us in dentistry if you can use the technology and use continuing education in a wise fashion. There's a lot of equipment that we use in our office. We have 8 operatories. We have 8 isolites. We have 8 intraoral cameras. So we use a DigiDoc. We take a picture of every patient, every procedure, before, during, and after. And if you said to me, Mark, what is the liberating moment? To me, it's using that technology, because we in dentistry don't have the verbal skills often to explain to patients changes that are going on. But if I can look at you and say, Howard, here's this picture of this MOD, FL, TWA, KLM, How can I help you? Do you see this line? What do you think? In your words, you tell me, and you say, my tooth is cracked. Then instead of me use the word need, I think need is a punitive four-letter word. There are a lot of other four-letter words. A better one is want. Howard, what do you want? Do you want to keep this tooth? Do you want to avoid a slow, painful root canal? You tell me. So we're real big in our practice of letting go and saying, I see changes. It's your tooth. How can I help you? So I think young dentists looking at the technology, if they commit to use an intraoral camera on every patient, they may not have the verbal skills that men and women that have our vintage in dentistry, but they can put the technology in front of them to say, wow, look what's happening. What do I do? How can I help? You guide me. So 200 grand in debt at $1,000 a day, it's one extra crown a day. So this can be done, it can be managed. I hope our young docs that are listening to this aim high. I hope you look outside of dentistry for leadership also. For me, the Dale Carnegie organization had a huge impact on my career. Don't know if you ever got to take a Carnegie class.
So far, we're identical, except
Yeah.
you're better looking with hair. I mean, for FAGD, MAGD, Spanky, Irwin, Kathy,
Tremendous.
Linda. I mean, we're so far everything you
Loving
said.
it.
I'm just saying like, yep, ditto.
So I would ask young dentists, would you be interested in studying material titled How to Win Friends and Influence People? How to Stop Worrying and Control Your Stress. It's huge and impactful. So every woman on my team, every teammate that I have has gone through Dale Carnegie. We have lunch and learns in the office at least once a month. We bring in the Jameson organization to teach in our office 3 times a year. So we invest heavily in continuing education and equipment and our own personal growth inside of dentistry and outside of dentistry. And we try to have a lot of fun too, and I would say that to young docs. You can focus on that debt and say, oh my God, what do I do? We're real big on saving as well. So we have a 401k plan that I match 50 cents on a dollar. I also have our office
Same here.
we have a
Do
money
that.
manager come in twice a year without me there to meet with the team. And one of the first questions he told me afterwards, one of the teammates looked at him and said, what's the difference in a stock and a bond? If you're from a family where financial literacy wasn't a big deal, that it sounds like a silly question, but it's a good question if you don't know. And so how am I going to pay for my kids' college? How am I going to pay for my car? How am I going to pay for my house? So if the team is financially comfortable and they see that we care for them inside and outside of dentistry, we pay them well, we have great benefits, we celebrate whenever it's a birthday in the office, I take them out to lunch. We have our office Hanukkah Christmas party where I'm sure what you do is that my wife has a team over at the house for a wine and cheese party, then we pick them up in a limo. We go to a local shopping center, they each get a gift certificate, they have 1 hour to spend the money, or I get the money back. So in 29 years, you know how much money I got back?
None.
Not a penny. I couldn't figure out how they spend so much so fast. Finally, they got outed. They do layaway.
So that's the wife you met in Israel?
This is.
Wow, you
So
kept her.
February was my 30th anniversary.
Congratulations.
Thank you, bud. As I'm fond of saying, it's 10 of the happiest years of my life. With the teenage daughters will wipe you out. You had sons, so you were
4
fortunate.
boys.
But and so for the team longevity, I know you had your Jan for how long? 20?
So they're day one,
Amazing.
28 years.
So I've got my Mary Catherine's been with me 24 years. My head assistant Tina's been with me 15 years. We have several teammates been with me 14 years, and I appreciate that. And people say, you know, you ever worried about them going somewhere else? Well, why would they? You spoil them rotten. You care about them as a person. You do little things on the books and off the books to honor them. Then it's a surprise that the practice is profitable and that the patients have loyalty and the communication skills are excellent. When I ask the team to stretch, when I ask them to come early, work through lunch, stay late, I don't even have to ask. Somebody comes in at 4:30 with a broken tooth, what do you tell them? I'll see you tomorrow? Or it's supper time. You're here, let's solve it. So for young docs, I think the future of dentistry is outstanding. There are storm clouds for sure. But with CE, with enthusiasm and passion, with following thought leaders in dentistry, folks at Pankey, at Spear, at Coyce, and following Townie people, that you had created something distinctive. Again, Howard, I remember first hearing about you going, this guy's nuts, and this won't work. And what, 30, 50,000 people later, how many Townies do you have?
195,000.
I mean, it's absolutely
from
nuts.
every country on earth.
You know, it was, and you've taken bullets for dentistry, and I think it's amazing that you risked what you did and sacrificed time from your family to create an avenue for dentists to get outside themselves. Because what we do is lonely, and it can be really hard, and it's hard to know, are you doing the right thing? Which guru do you follow? And I think you've made it safe for a lot of people to reach out to colleagues and say, I don't know what I'm doing. Who do I turn to? How do I solve it? So I look at our young dental colleagues. Again, I think dentistry is an amazing profession. And we've got the technology now to help young docs thrive, even though there are big storm clouds going on.
Okay, so Mark, so I want to put this $250,000 of student loans in perspective. First of all, if you're smart like you and keep your wife for 30 years, you just saved $1 million divorce.
That helps.
So 250,000 student loans is really only about a fourth of a divorce. But when this kid gets out of school, they're thinking, okay, I got $250,000 student loans, but if I buy a CBCT, a 3D X-ray machine, that's another $150. If I buy that CAD cam from Sorona, that's another $150. That's a whole nother dental school. Right. And then the laser company, BioLace, WaterLace, that's another $50,000, $70,000. So my first question to you is, if I graduate next month from dental school, do I need to buy another dental school's worth of equipment to be a high-quality dentist like you?
A good question. I would say the single first thing you do is you buy an intraoral camera. And that's the multiplier for everything. That's a $5,000 investment. That'll make you $100,000. To me, buying an intraoral camera, in 12 months you get a free Sarek. That's the level of profitability. So I've got 8 ops. We have 8 DigiDocs. We use them on everybody. And so,
explain to my viewer what a DigiDoc is.
The DigiDoc intraoral camera, it's the #1 rated camera by Reality Magazine. I've bought 4 different versions of that camera since the year 2000.
Where are they out of?
They're out of California. It's an American company. It's gorgeous resolution. They've got a new 3.0 USB camera that the photo is the same quality as a 35 millimeter camera. It's absolutely stunning.
I love your amazing mind, and what I'm most excited about so far is that $200,000 student loans. I mean, the average dentist only works $200 a day, and that's only $1,000 extra a day for 200 days. And how could a DigiDoc not sell one more $1,000 crown a day by showing someone their big old MOD that's all cracked?
It's an
shattered.
impossibility.
I know.
And I've had people get in my face and say, well, I'll buy a camera when it's more affordable. I first bought intraoral cameras in 1991. I think I paid $18,000 a camera. When I've met people that paid $35,000 for an intraoral camera, I'll say, do you think you overpaid? They'll say, no, it took me a couple more weeks to pay for it.
The first intraoral camera I bought was $38,000. Remember that? It was like a refrigerator.
I bought the...
what was that called?
I bought an AccuCam.
That was the
on
first
the cart
low
in
cost.
1991.
That was the $12,000 one, right?
Mine was 17 or 19.
But what was the first one that Patterson sold for, like, $38,000?
Well, and it was a crazy investment, except it made economic sense.
And nobody regretted buying
right.
it.
So if you've done anything among your amazing gifts, Howard, is that you've brought the business of dentistry to Main Street, to Main dentists, and to explain a $35,000 investment. It sounds nuts, but it makes economic sense. Would you buy a stock for $5,000 if in 12 months it's going to be worth $100? You'd be all over it.
Absolutely.
So how many of those $5,000 shares you want if it's going to be $100,000 a share? So I would say that to our young dental colleagues, and that is the liberating point. And where do you go from there? You talk about lasers. Denmat's got a laser for $3,000, so you can start small and then buy the fancy laser down the road as you choose.
Denmat, you mean the AMD laser?
Denmat has the Sol, S-O-L.
The SOL.
The Sol laser. It's a portable. It's about a $3,000 laser. It's amazing.
Okay.
Simple. You can bounce it from operatory to operatory. Yeah. Very easy to use.
Okay. So. And so we both got our fellowship in the AGD. We both got our mastership in the AGD. Tell the 5,000 graduates, why do you think you did that? Why do you think? Tell them.
Right.
Should they sign up for the AGD? Should they sign up to get their FAGD?
I think you're crazy not to do it. I think it's wonderful to have a goal like that. Being a fellow and a master of the Academy of General Dentistry made me take courses that I didn't want to take, which made me a better dentist. We just, as an office, we did 6 months smile training, the whole office, and Invisalign, and I hadn't done any ortho, because in school we were told you're not smart enough. I went to UNC, I'm a Tar Heel. The head of orthodontics was Bill Proffitt. The orthognathic surgery book, Proffitt, Bell, White. Ray White was the dean of oral surgeon, and Proffitt was head of orthodontics, so you knew you weren't smart enough to do it. But I think everybody ought to take a 6-month smile training course. Everybody ought to take Invisalign. Whether you do orthodontics or not, you see things that you never saw. You look at a case that you said, well, I can only solve this with veneers because that's the only tool that I have.
Now, there's two of those programs. One was Ryan Swain and one was...
Ryan was a 6-month smile.
6 Month Smile. That's the one you're talking about?
Yes.
And the other one was
Invisalign training.
Rick DePaul?
You know, that's been around over a decade.
What's his called, Rick DePaul?
I don't recall him.
But 6 Month Smile?
6 Month Smile and Invisalign.
Yeah, Invisalign.
Invisalign, way back when, I think the results weren't as amazing as they are now with the improvement in the CAD/CAM aligners and the little attachments that they use. So it's wonderful, again, for me as a doc to have it on the shelf. It's imperative to me to have the team trained, too. This is an example of how I lead, Howard. With 6 Month Smiles, I set the team first. Said, you go to the training, see, does this apply to our practice? They've got ownership then. They say, we get to make this call. It's not me as the doctor ruling from on high. I said, if I invest in this, will you do it? Will you use it? With our Cerec machine, I was the second Cerec user in North Carolina. In 1998, I bought a Cerec 2. And then I bought a 3D, then the AC, then the Omni Cam. And I have the team trained on it. So I come in, prep, and roll. Because as someone, probably you, taught me, is you ought to just do CEO work. You ought to do your doctor-only procedures. As a goal for a team, when you talk about setting goals, my team knows very clearly what we expect to produce per hour, what our overhead is per hour, per minute.
Can you share those numbers?
Sure, we try to produce $1,000 an hour. So that means, why should I spend time doing procedures that...
Now, does that include your hygiene? You're talking about the whole office?
That's doctor only.
That's just you?
Yeah.
So you're an 8 operatory, so how many hygienists do you have?
We have 2 hygienists. In the great state of North Carolina, you can only have 2 hygienists per doctor.
Right.
So each hygienist has an overflow room, and then I've got my 4 restorative rooms. And so we have 3 dental assistants. We have 3 hygienists. 2 work in hygiene. 1 is our treatment coordinator. And you say, man, why would you have a hygienist as a treatment coordinator? It's expensive, right? Someone with a hygiene education, with exquisite verbal skills, and can do the perio probing, and has seen my work and trusts me. It's a magnificent treatment coordinator. And then we have 3 business team members.
And what do you call the hygienist?
Our hygienist is our treatment coordinator as well. So she sits.
Does she present the treatment?
She does. So she sits with me with every new patient, every emergency patient that comes in. The first thing that we do is we sit in the consultation room. And I say, Howard, do you have any trouble finding your way here? You say, yeah, I'm new to town, or no, I grew up here. And who can we thank for referring you? Oh, Howard, Howard has sent us the nicest people. And then I'll say, Howard, can I ask you a question? Why did you leave your last dentist? I'm stunned in my seminars how many docs don't ask their new patients that. And I'm like, a colleague of ours in dentistry just got fired. Don't you want to know why? And if they say, well, he was always pushing crowns, that's a great thing to hear to me, because then I'll say, well, Howard, do you think you need one? And as soon as you say, I don't know, I'll say, Bud, you ever see your teeth on TV? Nope. Well, if I see changes going on, do I have your permission to tell you? And as soon as you say yes, man, it's supper time. It's just a great time to be a dentist. You've just told me if you can prove to me that there's something going on, I may say yes. So that, again, is the liberating thing. My treatment coordinator is listening to me doing that interview. Generally, women listen a whole lot better than men, and they read body language and nuances. Then Lauren, our treatment coordinator, will do a full mouth series, a Panorex, study models, do the full perio probing. She'll do the charting, and then I come in, take the intraoral camera, we go tooth to tooth and co-discover. And that's where I try real hard not to be a doctor. I just try to listen. I always try to show a healthy tooth and say, look, this is perfect. Howard, do you see this line? And that's where I try to get you to say, my tooth is cracked. You need to fix it. And that's where it turns, instead of from a battle for me saying, let's learn together, let me advocate for you. I see changes, how can I help you? If someone asks, well, what's my insurance going to pay on it? I'll say, that's a good question. What if it doesn't pay anything? You just told me your tooth is cracked. You told me you don't want to lose teeth. You want to keep your teeth the rest of your life. Your mother ended up with dentures. You've seen 26 teeth that look good and 2 that are split. How can I help? So most people at the end of that process, what's cool about the new patient experience in the consult room is I'll say, well, Howard, did you ever have a dentist start a visit like this? And 100% of the time I'll hear them say, I've never had a doctor sit down and talk to me. I've never had anybody sit down and do this. So it's just kind of cool. When I ask them about intraoral cameras, I'll say, Howard, have you seen your teeth on TV before? And they almost always say no. I'm like, this technology's been around in dentistry.
Fujicam.
Yeah, I remember that. I mean, this technology was around when you had a full head of hair, right?
I like what you said. The difference between me and you, our resumes are the same, just yours so nice and charming and proper. When they say, is the insurance pay for it, I say, well, what if you didn't want to have any more kids and they didn't pay for the vasectomy, but they pay 100% on castration?
I love the way you sell.
You know, is that?
So that's a huge thing for us. A handful of patients, I'll say to them, when I say, do you ever have a dentist start a visit like this? I'll tell them sometimes, there's colleagues of mine in town that chide me saying, you're wasting time sitting down and talking to folks. I'm like, well, this is when they're deciding, are we going to do business or not?
Hey, Mark, I want to ask you.
It's amazing to me. The patients have said yes to me, and I haven't even examined them.
I want to ask you the most controversial question on a new patient that was day one when we were in school in the 80s, and still this day. A patient calls up the phone. They never call up a new patient and say, oh, I'd like a new patient exam.
Yep.
They always call and say, I want to get my teeth cleaned. How do you handle the new patient who wants to come in and get their teeth cleaned?
Yep.
Do you do a new patient cleaning or do you do a new patient exam?
Everybody comes into the consult room first. So we'd say, we'd love to clean your teeth. Sure, what type? You know, if they say, I get my teeth cleaned every 6 months, I'd say, fantastic. You know, we'll try to get your teeth cleaned at the same visit. The first thing that we do is you get the privilege of sitting down and meeting the doctor. Where he gets
so you do try to schedule time for a cleaning after the new patient exam?
If they insist on it, we try to listen real carefully. You know, I want my teeth cleaned.
It's a delicate issue,
which
isn't it?
I love, instead of answering, is asking one extra question. I want to get my teeth cleaned. Is something going on? You got a wedding coming up? You taking family photos? What's the urgency? You know, it's just time for my 6-month cleaning. Great, we'd love to schedule it. The way that we do that here is you get to meet the doctor first, and we determine what type of cleaning. Do you need to be numbed up? Do you have mouth cancer? You know, do you need pre-medication? What's going on in your life? And most of them agree because, you know, historically, we were a 99% word-of-mouth referral practice. What has appalled me is the way the world changed now. Our number one referrer is Google. And you and I that are a little more old school, when we were in school, you didn't want a marketing patient, right?
Right.
You wanted a word-of-mouth referral patient. And I'm finding the new generation, their word-of-mouth referrer is Dr. Google. They don't ask a friend, they go online. So we've worked with Jameson management very carefully with our SEO, our search engine optimization, and we're number 1 or 2 in our community in most of the categories.
And what is the and explain to Kathy Jameson? A lot of people
Kathy Jameson
management.
management.
A lot of people have heard of you, seen you lecture,
right?
Might not have ever heard of Kathy in Oklahoma.
Jameson management out of Oklahoma. John Jameson was a dentist. Kathy has 2 PhDs, and it's just they're amazing thought leaders. The son-in-law Jess Weber is now CEO of the company with Kathy's daughter, Carrie Weber Jameson Weber. And they're young and they're hip and they're really transforming the company. They have Misty Absher Clark is their head of does the whole marketing, the SEO, did my website, did all our new patient brochures. They redid every written word in the practice, and it's been amazing what they've done.
Well, now our viewers are going to want to hear from them. So will you do our viewers a favor and send those 3 names an email? Kathy, John, and the third person you said.
Yes, Misty Absher Clark.
And I'd love to do podcasts with them.
I bet they would love to talk to you.
I would love that.
You know, they're great. And one thing that they offer anyone that's heard me speak is you get a complimentary 1-hour phone conversation with an executive from Jameson Management. Anybody who goes to one of my seminars gets a complimentary phone call for an hour just to talk about your practice and consider an office evaluation. And I think that's brilliant. To me, Michael Jordan needed Coach Dean Smith and Phil Jackson to get his championships. Tiger Woods could have used a different coach, but you've had coaches in your career. I've had coaches in my career. What I would say to my audience is if you already knew how to do it, you would be doing it. If you knew how to transform your practice, if you knew how to manage all these systems, why aren't you doing it?
And I'll take consultants. I'll take Kathy Jameson to the darkest extreme. Dentists won't pay $30,000, $50,000, $60,000 for a consultant, but then 18% of them will end up paying $100,000 for rehab. It's like, how come you won't pay $50,000 to lower your stress, increase systems, train your team, reduce your stress, make more money, and relax? But oh no, you're gonna sit there and just drink alcohol and eat Vicodin until you crash. Then it's 90 to 120 days at $1,000 a day while your practice is shut down.
Crazy.
And then when you come back from that, now you even got more stress because you've been closed for 120 days. You had your house paid off. Now you had to get a mortgage on your house to pay your bill. So why do you? So tell them, why do they not pay $50,000? I don't know how much Kathy Jameson costs, but
You know what I would
assume
say?
it's 50 grand. But
It's sort of to me. It's the intro camera question. How much is a camera? Well, why do you care? Would you spend $5,000 to make 100? When I first started working with Jameson, to do an office evaluation for them to come in and assess the practice, I think it was $1,000. Just from doing the assessment, you make an extra $25,000. Just from going over 25 systems that they make you document. If you spent $25,000 on coaching, you'd go up $250,000. We brought them in. I started working with them in year 2000 with a partnership. 2005, Howard, I got fired. I got fired after 19 years of private practice, left my partner, left the old office, half my patients, and I just took my Cerec machine and moved to a new facility. We brought in Jameson
so
management.
you had a partner for
8.5 years.
For 8.5 years.
Yeah, a
Okay.
delightful young woman, and we just chose to practice differently. All is cool. We brought in Jameson management. We invested in the coaching. I never once said to them, I want to make an extra dollar. I just wanted to stop the chaos. In 24 months, my $1 million practice went up over $500,000 just because we put in systems. The hygiene department, over 24 months, went up almost 75%, and we worked less days per month.
Let's talk about partnerships because I've been outspoken on this. A lot of everything in the world is influenced by the people who are making money off of it. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Like when your politician's on a soapbox that he really wants to get this project done, probably who's ever doing that project is putting a lot of money in that politician's pocket to get it done. And I notice in dentistry, everybody that really promotes partnerships, they sell all the partnerships
Right.
and all the financials. But I see when you get married, half those marriages fail. Mine failed after 20 years.
I'm sorry.
And they fell on three things: a third sex, a third money, a third substance abuse. But when you marry a woman, you have make love, you have children, you have holiday, you have all these glues that hold us together. But when you marry another dentist, you don't have many social glues. I mean, you don't have kids together, you don't celebrate evenings, holidays, whatever. You've been in this field. How many years have you been out? 30 years? 30?
I graduated dental school in 1983.
83, and this is 2015, so I had calculus and geometry, but I don't know how many years it is. 30 something?
I've almost been in practice 30 years.
Okay, so 30 years. What do you think of partnerships? Because a lot of these young kids are going to graduate next month. They're thinking, well, maybe I should go work for Dr. Smith for a year and then buy into half of his practice. I'm like, well, no, you should work for Dr. Smith and just keep it clean. And I pay my associates, a percentage of what they do. Keep it clean. Why would you want to marry that guy? I mean, do you think a partnership's a good idea?
I think it could be fantastic. And
It's
I
like
think,
marriage. Marriage could be
right,
fantastic.
you really
but it
you
could
need
be
to
a
do your
horrible
work on the
divorce.
front side, and you need to realize, is there the capacity? Are you philosophically compatible? Is there a game plan? Is there an exit strategy? If you bring in a partner, an associate, an employee, whatever you call them, without a goal, then I think that's a formula for failure. To me, part of the reason that I was attracted to bringing in a partner was demographics. I brought in a woman dentist, recognizing half the dentists were women. There's a large number of women that want women practitioners. The woman partner I had was a delight, and love her, care about her. I see her now, we hug and kiss, and life is cool. But philosophically, we just wanted different things, so it was okay. What's the statistic? 80-some% of dentists are in solo practice, and probably dropping because of the cost and because of circumstances, because of demographics as well. So I think it can be a fantastic thing. For me, I don't do root canals. Do you still do endo? Mm-hmm. I just never enjoyed it. Was not my gift. Across the street from me, there's 9 board-certified endodontists. So
if you just approach a root canal as Stevie Wonder picking a lock,
Yep.
I think you'd enjoy it.
I understand that. I've got enough restorative that if I could do root canals at $1,000 an hour, then I would do them. So if it doesn't fit into that paradigm for me,
Right.
it's like, why am I doing this when there's guys across the street that can do it in 20 minutes
But
and put
more
it back in my
importantly, you
hand.
shouldn't do anything you don't like for money.
Right.
Whenever you're doing something you don't like to do for money, it's going to end out bad. It's going to end up in depression, disease, addiction. Don't do things you hate for money.
Right. That's school of hard knocks, realizing that. And I would say that to the young dentist, that it sounds lucrative to do molar endo. Well, if you can knock it out of the park, God bless. If it's not your gift, do things that you enjoy.
Yeah.
Take more continuing education. You get back to the investment of why would you pay for coaching? I mean, how could you not? One of the great analogies I give to folks, I know you invest in the stock market, I'm presuming. Google went public at 70, right? Did you buy it at the opening?
No.
I tried. And then I thought about it and said, well, that's too expensive, 70. I'll wait till it goes down, then I'll buy it. What's it now, 500 something a share? So I look at coaching, I look at intro cameras, I look at going to Pankey, going to Spear, doing Dale Carnegie. These are small dollar investments that'll yield massive results. So I think the coaching, to me, again, why, if you could work less days and make an extra couple $100,000 a year, why do you care what it costs? Don't look at the 50 grand, what it costs. Don't look at the 30 grand it costs. What's it cost you per day, and what do you get back as a benefit? So, Howard, I love being a dentist. It's been a great profession. I've met amazing people. People have said to me, why do you want to hang out with a bunch of dental people? Why do you go to all these meetings? And I hope in the speaking world there's a neat camaraderie. If we weren't dentists, would we still be buds? You know, I think I've met a lot of people, and you have too, that the losers, the turkeys of dentistry don't do this. So you meet people that are like-minded. It's just kind of funny as I'm telling my story, and you're going, I did that, I did this, I did that. The Dale Carnegie organization says 3 magic words: success leaves clues. So that, to me, you and I just aren't that smart. What are the highly successful people in our profession? What did they do? And you and I kind of copied them.
Yeah, and I want to add one more thing. You said, don't do things you don't like for money. I mean, if you hate molar endo, don't do it. You want to go to work and play. But the bigger rule is don't give employees money who you don't enjoy seeing. If you're paying employees on the 1st and 15th, and there's people in there that you can't stand, you don't like, you don't respect them, but they do their job well, that doesn't work. You want to drive to work and walk in the door and see all these friends and like, hey Yoni, hey Jan, and what are you doing? I want to get in trouble every Monday morning because Jan's like, quit talking to Yoni and get in there. Come on. You're 5 minutes late. It's like, why am I out in the hall talking to Yoni? Because I love to see Yoni. I love Zach. I love all these people in there. And, so keep it absolutely fun. I want to ask you another question. I'm going to go back to the AGD because we're literally identical twins. And by the way, he's wearing a wig. That's not his natural hair. He's bolder than I am.
I picked my grandparents well. This is me, baby.
And but you said something. We have so many identical experiences. Those are little clues. I remember when I started the FAGD, writing this very long, mean letter to the AGD saying, "Why the hell should I have to take on implants and ortho? I'm not doing any of that, and I want to spend all my time on restorative and crown and bridge, and I don't want to do this requirement." And then this older dentist got on the phone. He's calling me up, and he's being real nice. I'm being a little brat, and so basically he said, "No, I have to do it." So that forced me. So I went like, well, I'm just going to knock out this whole stupid deal. So I looked for a course that could knock out my whole implant deal, and guess what? I randomly signed up for
Chromish.
Mish's 7
Score.
Yeah, and I mean, it was like discovering the Eastern Hemisphere. It was like I sailed upon a new deal. I mean, totally changed my life. Same thing with the ortho deal. I thought, well, how am I going to do that? So I signed up for Richard Litt. He was the only board certified in orthodontics. He taught at University of California, San Francisco, University of Detroit, Michigan. And I never looked at ortho the same way again. Right. And it increased my referrals to orthodontists because now I'm seeing it. Right. So even though I started doing some ortho, my orthodontist got a lot more. But I want to say this. This was the law of unintended consequence. I think looking back, though, how the FAGD and the MAGD was most to me was that when you are in Phoenix and you start going to these courses to get your FAGD, you start seeing, you go to the classes, there might be 3,000 dentists in Phoenix, but it's the same 100 guys at all the courses. And now those are your lifelong buddies that you bike with and run with and watch football at the bar with. And I think it was those relationships those friends, and then that's what I hope Dentaltown does for people via the internet. If you're in a small town and you don't have a like-minded buddy in your town who loves endo, you'll find them on Dentaltown. I mean, you'll find all that. But I think that the 100-hour CE diet is probably the biggest clue that you're going to make it all the way to the top.
Right.
Would you say that?
I think, again, it absolutely, and I heard that from one of my mentors in dentistry, my first year in private practice, July 1st, 86. I bought the practice July 1st. The doctor's wife's best friend was a receptionist, and she quit 6 weeks after I started, and I fired the chain-smoking hygienist. And I had one employee left. And God smiled upon me because my third month in practice, I went to a Linda Miles seminar. And Linda looked at me, some pathetic character from some Oliver Twist novel. Please, sir, may I have some more? I went up to her and said, Linda, I bought this practice. I don't know what I'm doing. And she said, poor child, let's have lunch. And she sat with me and listened to me whine and moan and complain. And she said, why don't you try this, that, this? Gave me 5 little ideas. Next month, the practice doubled and then doubled. Another buddy of mine said, go to every course you can. If you get one idea out of the entire day, it's worth the whole thing.
Or one friend.
One friend would be nice. And then I heard Greg Stanley speak in 1986 with Whitehall, where he talked about living within your means, paying cash for your cars. You want to buy a house, put a third down, making sure that you save. So I did an IRA each year of my 2-year GPR. I did an IRA my first year of practice. 1987, I started our office pension plan. 88, I started fully funding it. And every year I fully funded it. And I also told the team, if you stick with me, I promise you I'm going to pay every dollar I can towards your retirement. So I had 3 or 4 teammates that have 6-figure retirement accounts.
Yep, same here.
I'm very proud of that. And I know there was an old dentist in my community. The tax laws used to be that if you fired somebody at like 15 years, they didn't get their retirement plan. And at 14 and a half years, he would fire all his employees. And I'm like, way to go, Doc. Proud of you. You saved a couple $1,000s and you destroyed your team. So I want to be of abundance, Howard. I want people to be enthusiastic about dentistry. I want them to aim high. I don't want them to let the poopy people in dentistry bring them down, because there's too much good, there's too much abundance. There's enough patients around that want to keep their teeth. And so I would ask people, as you say, the FAGD, MAGD, it forces you to stretch. It's an old cliche. You hear it at every seminar. The mind expanded never returns to the same size. Once you see things you've never seen before, your life has changed. And I want the young docs that are listening to stick with the winners.
Yeah, when we started our 401k back in 1987, and some of my staff said they didn't want to do it and everything, and I said, well, you're going to do it. And they said, well, legally, it's our choice. And I said, okay, well, you can hire an attorney and I can hire an attorney.
See who's going to win that one.
I'm going to do it, and if you want to go out and fight me, whatever. And what I'm very proud of that is Jen's with me for years, but sometimes over the years, some of the employees have come to me and they wouldn't have cashed out because they have some kind of emergency. I say, well, you think this is an emergency now, but it's going to be a bigger emergency is when you're 70 years old and you can't work and you can't get a job. And right now, yes, this is a big problem, but you're young, you're healthy, whatever. And I said no every time. And when they came to me and said, well, I have the legal right to, I just tore it up and said, then go, serve me, sue me. And now, 27 years later, talk about some spoiled, lucky women that had a guy saying, "This is what we're gonna do. We're gonna save." And Greg Stanley is a neighbor of mine. We're both from Phoenix, Arizona. And so I got to see him in 1987, Greg Stanley with Whitehall Management.
Amazing.
And I want to say one thing about these dentists. I want to say something that people don't like to talk about, but they always talk about their $250,000 in student loans. Again, 3 out of 10 women in dental school will marry a male dentist in their class. And if you're a dentist or MD or lawyer and you marry, if a doctor marries a doctor equivalent in dentistry, medicine, or law, it's the lowest divorce rate in the United States. It's under 10%. It's 9%.
Wow.
So when a female dentist marries a male dentist in her class, it's a 91% chance her marriage will work. And a big reason that is because they both make $10,000 a month. And women dentists have almost unheard of suicide. I've only been able to locate one suicide by a female dentist, and she was on mental pills for psychiatric issues. But the men in the last 40 years dentists have been historically high. And one thing they always have in common is they're always married to someone that doesn't have a job that spends $10,000 a month. And if you talk about, marriage failing on money, sex, and substance abuse, and I want to talk about that substance abuse. When you're dating, when you're going to graduate from dental school next month, when you go on a date with a girl and she doesn't even try to pay for half the dinner. I mean, she doesn't even fake it and like reach for her visa. I mean, when she's sitting there like, I have zero intention, I'm hot and you're not, and you're a rich dentist and you're gonna marry me, and you marry that person, they destroy $10,000 a month. I want to remind you of one interesting study that got flipped on its head. When we were in undergrad, they told us that that drugs were addictive, and it was all the drugs' fault and addiction, and that every time they took mice and rats and monkeys in cages and gave them a choice between water or water laced with drugs, they would always pick the water laced with drugs until they died. And we all believed it, and everybody believed it for like 30 years. And just recently, in 2005, some kid in Portugal said, well, wait a minute. Those animals are all in cages. Let's redo those studies. So he redid the studies where then the cages pick water and drugs. But the control was mice and rats and monkeys were in environments that had everything a mouse wanted, with toys and plays and playmates and lovers and kids and all that stuff. And in the cages, they all picked the substance abuse till they died. And in the happy farm, nobody picked the drugs. So so when you say a third of marriages fail from substance abuse, a lot of that substance abuse is self-medicating because you're spending yourself blind.
Right.
And so, so the financial advice, we talked about joining the FAGD, taking 100, he said success leaves clues. 100 hours of CE a year is amazing. And you can do a lot of that low cost, like on a podcast, online CE. You don't have to fly clear across the country. But the other one is finance. You said Whitehall Management, Greg Stanley.
Right.
Learn, it doesn't matter how much you make, it matters how much you spend. Once you start spending more than you make, it doesn't matter if you make $10,000 a year, $100,000 a year, $1 million a year. I'll never forget when Keating got into legal problems. And here was the Keating and all this deal and everything. And the guy had like 9 mansions around the world. He had yachts, boats, helicopters. And then the minute he blinked, everybody's like, oh my God, he didn't have $1 saved. It's like, how could you have 9 houses, 9 yachts, helicopters?
Praying to a different God. It's the greed factor, and it's terrible. And I would say this to young docs again. You could say to me, Dr. Mark, okay, I'm $250,000 in debt, and you're telling me to start a 401k, to start an IRA, to do a Roth. Yeah, I am. If you work 200 days a year and you put $10 a day away, that's $2,000, right? That's just, you can't tell me you can't save $10 a day in your first year of practice. I would want them to borrow the money to start the IRA, to start the Roth, to start their 401k. Because as you and I go 30 years down the road, we see the power of the compounding, the power of saving, and the discipline. I got fired in 2005. I moved to the new building. One of the first things I did the first month.
What do you mean you got fired?
My partnership broke apart.
Okay, but you're taking the blame. You're saying you got fired.
Yeah, and I say that it's also a good seminar story.
Yeah.
But the partnership broke up, and I had to leave my 19-year practice.
Yeah.
And move to a new facility, which was stunning, and it's been an amazing thing. And the first month that the payment was due, Patterson did the upfit. They were amazing. They were a joy to work with. 8 operatories of ADEC equipment. We spent a fortune. And my Mary Catherine has been with me 24 years. When the first payments were due in end of July, whatever it was, I said, double it. Just take what we owe that month and pay twice what the note said. And she did. And in August, I said, double it. Do it again, pay twice the note. And so every month we did that. And my wife kind of questioned that and said, well, there's things we could do with that money. And I just said, trust me. I know how the story's going to end. 2009, the economy tanked. And I'd almost paid off my debt already. So actually 2009, that was the biggest year I ever had in my practice career. So I was very fortunate with that. And it is liberating to practice being debt-free. If a patient says no, you say, I don't care.
So Mark, where were your mom and dad born?
My mother was born in Baltimore, Maryland. My father, I lovingly say, is one of the few redneck Jews. We have lox and bagels for breakfast with grits on top of them. He was born in Greensboro, North Carolina.
So, because see, I was starting to think that you might be first generation. I would have guessed before you said that your parents were not born in the United States, because the one thing I see over and over and over is the the biggest predictor of debt is where this kid is born. When they're born, those dental students are born outside the United States. This is what I always see. If they're born in Vietnam, Laos, Cambodia,
Right.
India, whatever, they walk out of dental school and they will go rent a 400 square foot studio apartment in San Fran. They will go work in a dental office and they will work 7 to 7 Monday through Saturday.
Yep.
And they will walk to work.
They'll do
whatever.
what they got to do to get
but
it done.
gosh darn, if they were born in the United States of America, they're going to jump out of there and go buy a brand new Honda or Toyota or Nissan. They're going to buy probably a house that costs their dental school loans. I mean, here they got $200,000 of dental school loans, and they'll go buy a $250,000 house. And then the wife decides that she's going to stay home and have kids. And then you catch up with that dentist 10 years later, and they're still servicing interest on debt. They never get to where they have interest being made from savings.
Right.
In fact, I can look at those 5,000 graduates and say, if you were born in this country, when you're 50 years old, you'll still be paying interest every month on credit cards, mortgages, car payments, whatever. But if you were lucky enough to be born in the old world, anywhere non-U.S., like especially Asia, Africa, Latin America, you probably will just absolutely have the lowest standard cost of living, and you'll probably pay off all your debts in 3 to 5 years. And when you're 30 years old, you'll be making interest on savings.
Or
It's huge, Mark.
see, my dad's dad was from Lithuania, so the great grandparents were Russia, Poland, Lithuania, Hungary. So it was all Eastern European. A lot of people fleeing the Tsar.
Now, is that
fleeing-
Yiddish?
Is it Yiddish?
Yeah, if they're Eastern European Jewish?
It's the Ashkenazi Jewish.
Okay.
The Sephardic Jews or the Spanish Jews.
Okay.
So, but my father started a home building business. My mother was a guidance counselor and did political fundraising. My folks always worked really hard. My grandparents worked really hard. It was a work ethic that I was taught. What's interesting for the Americans, for the story Howard just said, that thinking that at 50 you'll still have debt, the difference in current young dentists that didn't hear Howard and this generation is you just got the secret to success. Howard just gave you the key, saying to the American-born dentists, you don't have to be like our predecessors that buy a big non-English speaking car and buy a $500,000 home and buy a beach house and a mountain house and live a lifestyle as a dentist. Because you've heard it here today that you don't have to put up with that. You can say from day one, I'm going to save 10% of everything I do. You're going to invest in your education. You're going to live within your means. You're going to get your wife or husband or significant other to be on board for a long-term saving plan. So because of this gift of time, hearing you, Howard, these people don't have to follow a pattern of failure.
And I want to say something else to you kids. I got a lot more money than you do. I don't own a boat. I have a friend with a boat. I don't have a cabin. I have a friend with a cabin. I'm not going to buy a four-wheel drive Jeep. I got friends that have four-wheel drive. I don't have any of that stuff. Your stupid, idiot, crazy friends will buy the boats and the cabins and the timeshares and all that, and they're going to be wanting to invite you to go with them. I don't have any of those toys. In fact, my four boys always, if they tell me anything all the time, they go, well, Dad, how come you have so much money and you don't have a jet ski, a boat, a cabin, a blah, blah, blah. It's like, a fool and his cash will soon be parted. And, the best place to put that cash is in your gosh darn bank. And every time you go spend money, this is what you don't understand. Every time you go spend money, you increase your stress. Now, I'm talking about on consumption. When Mark talks about building a new office with new equipment and all that, that's a business that generates cash. But when you go buy a big house and a cabin and a boat and a timeshare, these are all things that destroy cash. So suck it up, and that makes you stressful. And when you come home every night and you're exhausted and you barely made your $1,000, and then you walk in your house and your wife says, oh, look at the $1,000 worth of stuff I bought today, that starts leading to depression and arguing and fighting and all that. You know how much nicer it is when you come home? And so my advice to the dental graduates out there, if you're graduating next month, is before you leave school, marry one of those women dentists in the class. Just walk up to her and propose at graduation. Says, hey, let's graduate and get married tonight. We're in Las Vegas at the time of me. Fly down to Vegas right now with one of those classmates to get married. But spending is a huge part of success, isn't it?
Well, again, the audience is fortunate that they're hearing this. Whether they apply it is our hope and prayer for you all, that you live a wise life and live within your means. If part of your attraction to dentistry was the lifestyle, it's not too late to hear a couple old guys tell you there's another side to it, which is living wise, living within your means. One of my all-time most interesting patients always came in. He hadn't shaved. He wore suspenders, a flannel shirt, and worn blue jeans. And every time he came in, he said, "You charge too much. This is too expensive." I opened the paper one day. He had donated $150 million to start a school.
Yeah.
And I charged too much.
And we got to say in Phoenix. In Phoenix, like where I live, you drive a Lexus, it's paid in cash. It's no mortgage. But you go to Scottsdale and you see someone in a Lexus or Mercedes, it's a lease. They're all faking it until they make it.
Gotcha.
But if you buy one, but you see someone in Chandler or Phoenix with a Mercedes Benz, they bought it.
Well, it's just, again, it's interesting. It's up to your decision how you want to live, how you want to raise your children. And I would be shocked if the Ferran boys weren't hard workers because you modeled it as your dad modeled for you. My dad was a home builder. He built 500 some homes in Greensboro. He built 3 apartment complexes. I remember him coming home sweaty and smelly and with big muscles in his arms. He'd been in there working with his men, and he modeled that. And I hope I've done that for my children, showing them how hard I've worked and tried to be that. I'm very proud of them, and they're off to a great start.
My dad's birthday would have been last Saturday. He would have been 78, and a lot of my kids ask me, well, why did you work so many hours at Sonic? Because from 10 to 20, he had Sonic drive-ins, and I love Sonic because, number one, that was pretty much the only time I got to see my dad. And do you want to stay home with your 5 sisters and play Barbie dolls, or go to work with your dad with free hamburgers, French fries, onion rings, chocolate malt shakes,
be all over that,
and a bunch of beautiful teenage girl car hops,
Good choice.
and all that stuff. So my mom would always say, "How will you go in every Saturday? Don't you want to stay home and rest?" And I'm like, God, I want to go with my dad and eat cheeseburgers and see car hops. And I just thought it was a blast. But that's where we learned our work ethic. My dad worked from first thing when he got up till when he went to sleep, 7 days a week till he dropped dead. That's all we knew.
Well, it shows, and I know you boys are proud of what you've created.
So I'm going to take this one different direction because I only got you for 7 more minutes. So we've been talking about a lot of advice for these 5,000 kids that graduate. I want you to wrap up the close of the 5 or 6 minutes with this very common problem. I hear this all the time, Mark. They're saying, okay, I'm in a small town and we're not in fancy New York City. We're not in fancy Beverly Hills. And I'm out there in just humble butt America, and my practice has been flat for 10 years. And bottom line, Mark, I'm kind of burned out. My house has been flat for 10 years. I'm out there in Parsons, Kansas. We ain't built nothing fancy. Our economy is just flat. Everything's flat. I'm kind of burned out. What could you tell that guy to get him fired up in dentistry again?
I would sure try to find something to get myself turned on. I would work with Dale Carnegie, bring a Carnegie trainer in to add enthusiasm to the practice. I would work with Jameson management, let them assess the systems, see what the roadblocks to success are. I would make small investments in equipment that will lead to huge increases. I would make sure that you're exercising and avoiding the habits that you've talked about. And I would push to go to continue education to learn something new, whether you apply it to the office or not. Again, you'll meet energized people. You'll see what bright people in the profession are doing. Besides that, one of the gifts of going to Pankey in Key Biscayne, Florida, the courses were long during the day, but then at night you'd sit with your classmates and say, how do you hire? How do you fire? How would you solve this case? So I would really want people to hang out with winners, because it's contagious when you're around enthusiastic people. Dale Carnegie says if you act enthusiastic, you will be enthusiastic, and there's no substitute for it. I would say to you, Howard, what would you do if you had a real job? We get to do dentistry. It's a hoot. You think about it. We get to make a great difference in people's lives. Very few of them die when we're working on them. We can work with whom we want, where we want, when we want. It's a gift. I don't know. I have no skills or ability.
I got this 85, 88-year-old patient named Bernard Wells. Every time he comes in my office, he tells me the same thing. This has been going on since 1970. He comes in and he goes, hey, I just want you to know that my entire life,
ugly men in overalls in a machine shop with no air conditioner, and I did that my whole life. And you're inside with air conditioners with all these beautiful women. Do you know how lucky you are?
Yes, we do.
I just crack up laughing. And he always has to tell me that every time, how lucky I am.
I would ask the young dentist to avoid poopy dental people, because I hate poopy dental people, because I used to be one. I hated dental school. I hated first semester of dental school, actually to the point that I quit school for about
You quit dental school?
I quit dental school Thursday night, my first week back spring semester. I went to tell the dean I quit. And he said, great, come back at halftime, we'll sign you out. And I went slinking down the hallway of the UNC School of Dentistry and ran into a young professor, Dr. Ron Strauss, who saved my life. And he said, Mark, it's okay. Being a dental student is nothing like being a dentist. Just give it another hour, give it a day, see how you do. And I had a decent morning, went back to see the dean at halftime and told him I wasn't going to quit, and he acted disappointed. May he rest in pieces. And I muddled my way through the rest of the semester, started patient care that summer, caught fire, and I graduated in 3.5 years. Went to Israel for 4 months, met my wife, did the 2-year GPR, bought my practice, bang, I was off to the races. So my wife and I endowed a scholarship at the UNC Dental School in Dr. Strauss's name. So I'll never forget it. So I would say that to the young docs in the house.
Tell me, your wife and you endowed a what?
A scholarship, the Ron Strauss Community International Award. It pays for young dentists to go overseas and work on a rotation.
That's
Because
amazing.
going over to Israel was such a big impact for me, and we've done some other scholarships at UNC, and I probably was the poster child of saying, once I leave dental school, I'm not going to give a penny to this place, and I think that's ridiculous. Our schools give us so much. They give us the privilege of doing what we do, so if you've had some bumps in dental school, you got to let that go, because there's more good than bad.
So I only get you for 3 more minutes, so I want you to get real specific on something, because I agree, you exercise, you just watch your spending, take 100 hours CE, but give him absolutely specifics about this Dale Carnegie thing. How would he do that? Is there a website? Exactly what are you talking about on the Dale Carnegie?
Dale Carnegie, they have a basic Dale course, their first level course. Dale Carnegie's a 100-year-old organization. They're in every country in the world. But they're basic. The first book was, Mr. Carnegie studied successful people. And he wrote the book, How to Win Friends and Influence People. At the time I took it, there was a 12-week training course that you took at night, 3 hours at night. Maybe you spend $1,200 on it. It just wasn't real money. But it teaches you how to remember names, how to set goals, how to stand up and do a basic public presentation, how to present yourself in a situation, how to extemporaneously stand up and speak.
Now, did you win the sharp and pencil?
I got a few of them.
All right. We
Gotta
have
love
everything
that.
in common.
And then I did the 2-day HIP, the High Impact Presentation Dale course, where they videotape you doing 8 3-minute talks. Because I felt a calling to spread the word for our type of dentistry, but I wasn't very good. The first talk I did, I stood behind the podium like everybody else and read my notes, and I sucked. And I took the Dale training, and the first of the 8 talks, my hands are in my pockets, and I'm reading my notes like everyone else. And by number 8, I'm outside myself. And that's when I went to California for the CDA at Anaheim meeting in April 1999. 1999, I had 5 seminars. Year 2000, I had 20. Last year was 37, so was off to the races.
Well, if you've never had, or if you're looking for a speaker for your dental society or dental association, I mean, we're having him at town. He's speaking a couple different times at town. He's on a podcast, Mark. I would say out of the 1,000 people who probably speak in dentistry, you're absolutely a Hall of Famer and a top 10. I don't think I've ever met anyone who didn't say that your seminar was
Thanks, bud.
awesome. I mean,
Thank you.
awesome. You're amazing.
Appreciate
it.
it.
And by the way, it is a wig. It's not real hair. Thank you so much
It's
for
mine.
spending an hour
Thanks,
with me
Howard.
today.
Appreciate it. Good luck, guys.
Hey, I want you to come next year to the 14th annual Townie meeting in April and have a blast. There's nothing more fun than a Townie meeting.